You shouldn't listen to me either. So last week, Brian Holdsworth released a video called Why You Shouldn't Listen to Me. And he explained that many of the topics and the issues that he discusses on his channel are things that he really didn't go to school for. And as he was talking, I was kind of convicted. I thought, I probably need to make the same kind of video because, the case holds true for me as well. So I resolved to make that video, but by the end of the week, it kind of slipped my mind, and I actually completely forgot about it until last night. Somebody made a comment on one of my older videos. They said that my arguments were incoherent, and there was a lot of logical fallacies, and they said it was like I'd never had logic, I never studied logic before. And the reality is, as difficult as that is to hear, the reality is that guy was right. I actually made a video about how I never studied logic before. But so the guy was right. I mean, I'm a high school dropout. And I mean, that's why I felt like I should probably make that video. I mean, I legitimately dropped out of high school. And, I don't want to be defined for the rest of my life by the mistakes I made as a teenager. I made a ton. But, I eventually went to college. I went to Aquinas College here in Nashville, Tennessee, had a great education, but really nothing that I studied, nothing. Even the philosophy and the theology, none of it was really adequate to prepare me for this age that we live in now. What could possibly prepare you to evangelize in this kind of age where you've got hedonism, scientism, nominalism, socialism, materialism, and those are just the isms that I wrote down over here. We could probably make a list of another 20 or so. But what could prepare us to evangelize that type of culture if knowledge is a hierarchy and the entire society is missing the foundational elements of education? How do we even begin to lay the foundations of evangelization? How do we share the gospel how do we share the supernatural with a generation that doesn't even understand the natural? Anything that we present to them, the supernatural that we present without the natural foundation to rest it upon, it runs the danger of appearing not as supernatural, but as superstition. And I think for many, the intellect is going to reject superstition. And it should. The intellect should reject superstition. That's normal. That's what you would want. But we're in a position now where we're battling that perception to distinguish the two of them. How do you evangelize a culture that, a generation ago, we were debating the moral ethics of abortion. Today, we're going to just commit abortion during birth. We're not even going to worry about whether or not that there's any ethics involved in that. A generation that is willingly electing open socialists. Don't let that socialism stuff fool you. 100 years ago, totalitarianism wasn't elected. It gained power through forceful revolutions. But today, we're just willingly electing them because they will give us or grant us or protect our comforts, our little American utopias that we have inside our man caves. And I get this. I get this completely because that was me. 10 or 15 years ago, that was me. That's what this room started out as. It was a man cave, and my life revolved around sitting here and waiting for the next Miami Dolphins game. And I've done other videos in the past on this, but all of the time wasted on that mediocrity. I love the Miami Dolphins. I'm from South Florida, but but all of that time they were completely mediocre. I mean, they're still mediocre, and that, that hurt. But that was a waste of my time. It's like I was identifying with mediocrity. But anyways, that's why in these videos I'm so tough on the guys sitting in the man cave, and the guys watching sports, and the guys sitting around playing video games while their wives are out there doing everything, because I regret what it was that I was wasting for over a decade on mediocrity. And it was in the midst of this, in this man cave, that I just felt this really strong interior call. I mean, just something really profound in here, and there were just no words to like articulate what it was. I couldn't explain it to people when I tried to, but it was there. But I recognized it as some kind of movement of God inside of me. I mean, I wasn't ignorant. I was a practicing Catholic, but I was just kind of going to Sunday Mass and maybe occasionally once a month or so praying the Rosary. But I had studied spirituality. I had, at Aquinas College, I'd learned about my faith. I'd learned about prayer life. I'd been to Steubenville. I'd had this deep experience years earlier. So I kind of recognized this as a movement, an interior movement, but I just didn't know what it was pointing to, or how to describe it. But I don't know if it was God's plan or anything, but my wife and I, we started meeting other couples our age, with kids, our kids' age, that were describing the same kinds of things inside of them. And it kind of brought us all together, and we started meeting at our parish on Friday nights for adoration, and then, going out to eat or something afterwards. So as we're going out to eat and hanging out and all, we're having these kinds of discussions, what's wrong with the world, and these same kinds of things we talk about on this channel and all the other Catholic YouTube channels, the same spirituality. We're having these discussions, and, eventually we start meeting over here at my house, and we're cooking out in the backyard or whatever, and we're having these talks, deep theological conversations, and talking about, the last 100 years. And, our kids, there was a ton of them by this point. There's probably, 7, 8, 10 kids running around screaming. It's, we're out here just kind of talking, and our kids are running around the neighborhood screaming. And I know the neighbors must have thought that we were over here partying and drinking and we weren't watching our kids. So just kind of in an effort to keep from getting the police called on us, there was nothing going on. We weren't drinking or anything. We were legitimately Catholics hanging around, talking about the Rosary and the Blessed Mother and Fatima and the whole 100-year thing. But just to keep the police from getting called on us, I gather all the kids up and I'm like, go get in the house. Well, they end up in here in the man cave because it's the coolest room in the house. But so eventually there's a kid over there on my drum set, and then there's kids they're messing with my guitars, they're on the keyboards, and so I come in here to get them off of everything because I don't want them breaking my stuff. And one of the kids, I think the one behind the drums, is like, hey, teach us how to play a song. And I look up and I literally see a kid over here on the drums, guitars, keyboards, and I'm like, so I couldn't resist. I taught them all like a bunch of 1-4-5 songs, all in the same key. It was like Louie Louie, and they were all it was like all in the key of A, and one kid would play them in the key of G. But it was fun. It wasn't good, but it was fun. And anyways, this was the beginning of what's now known as 2B1. And so the kids began coming here on Tuesday night to rehearse and learn how to be a band, how to be a music ministry. And the parents end up doing sidewalk ministry, evangelizing to people out in the public. And so we've got this ministry that's starting to blossom, and the band ends up growing and becoming pretty vibrant, pretty legitimate young kids doing music ministry, and the sidewalk ministry ends up becoming a blog, and the blog ends up getting some significant circulation. And while all of this is going on, those of us working in this ministry begin really being attracted to this missionary vocation. And so we start joining lay orders. So when you look at our ministry today, it's filled mostly with secular Franciscans and Third Order Dominicans, because we were really, really attracted to this calling, this missionary call on the church that was expressed so beautifully in the Franciscan and the Dominican order. I really believe that over the course of 100 years of progressive education and exposure to a media with an agenda, and all of the holes in the hierarchy of knowledge in the formation of what it means to be a human person in philosophy and theology and virtue have produced 100 years later a generation that may actually be evangelization proof. And because of that, this time is a time that needs new missionaries to go out into the world and preach against the heresies of modernism. And that's the mission of Laudare. Be a part of this mission. Check out laudare.org for our blog. Follow 2B1 on Instagram, 2B1 Catholic. And, of course, subscribe here on YouTube to this channel. And I'll put all those links in the description.
Logic, said the professor. Why don't they teach logic at these schools? Logic? Logic? What's logic? Is it like spelling? And why don't they teach it to me at school?